Yes, yes.
Hmm.
It's a page called Mira Foundation.
Oh, acha.
Good evening, everyone. And today we are again present with another episode of Reflections, a program that has the objective of bringing out some real stories that can set some example, that can enlighten us, that can guide us for resilience, for equanimity, for navigating some of the challenges that any of us, or especially as parents, we might go through. This program is not prescriptive of anything specific, neither it recommends any center or therapy or place to go for, but it is rather a way of connecting with people, a way of creating a sense of community, creating a sense of ecosystem with all those who are in the same journey in a way, working with children, working with their challenges, working in that whole process with our own challenges as well, be it be professional, be it be parents, or be it be anybody who is concerned with difficulties, developmental challenges, and children. So today we have with us Ms. Seema Lal, and she is known to me since many, many years now. And she is a psychologist. She is a special educator. She works for children with difficulties. She is a mother uh, who who had her own journey, who had her own experiences, exposure to certain similar things as her profession was, and she's also an active researcher as of now. So, inviting and welcoming you, Seema Lalji, and I would want to start with to know about a little bit more in detail about your journey as a student of psychology, as somebody who went on to becoming a professional, and then also who became a mother. What
Okay.
were your what was your journey about? What was the things that you could kind of summarize in that journey?
Okay. Firstly, thank you so much, Manish ji, for this opportunity. Because, yeah, you have been a great support of Together We Can on our journey. So this is very grateful for all your help so far and ahead as well. So, yeah, starting as a student, I think it was wanting to understand myself has probably pushed me to learn psychology, because I was not a very easy teen myself and not a very easy young adult so I think it was more about understanding people and understanding myself, which probably led me to graduate in psychology. But post the graduation and masters, moved to special education. Now thinking of it, probably because children was an area of interest. But the minute you became a professional, when I did my special ed course and you get this RCI license, suddenly, everybody is like blessing you. Wow, you're doing such noble work, suddenly you develop a halo around you, just because you're working with the most vulnerable population, which is children. And I think as a young adult, then I was very flattered, ego boost, you were like, okay, you're going to change the world. And My first work was in Tamil Nadu, and in Tamil Nadu, the people really treat you like God. So it's really worshipping, especially when you're going for community work. So that was a very so for me, professional means you are sorted, you know it all, you are there in a position to help others. So the hierarchy was very clear. That was what I started off as a professional, which was shot down very soon into my career, where I realized one of my teachers, probably she doesn't realize it now, but there was a child who developed a very strong dependency on me, because only if I work with the child, he would work. So for me, it was very flattery. Even the mother was very happy. Child is very happy with me. Child is progressing also. But I had to take a leave, and the child refused to work with anybody. Regression. So when I came back and resumed work, I thought, okay, everybody was grateful. The mother was like, oh, thank you for coming back. So I was very proud of myself. Oh, what a wonderful professional this child can do. But then my teacher, then, that was my early 20s, then really, I don't know, she put me down there and what have you done? So that is when the realization hit that, as a professional, if you're making the child and the parent dependent on you, you're the biggest failure. That was the first learning for me from having this big halo, and I am helping everybody and everybody is blessing me to, hello, we are all together in this. This is your job. Your job is to make sure that the others, that's your job, that they're not dependent on you. So that was the first realization. But then I changed jobs. I moved a little bit to mental health and adults briefly. There also, it was with the Banyan. So there, Vandana and Vaishnavi, I was working very closely with them. That was their initial years. So a lot of dignity was placed on working with the most vulnerable population, and that was very important because I valued my dignity. So why shouldn't I value anybody else's? Why should we see it differently for a child or anybody else just because they are dependent? Don't they deserve the same kind of dignity and respect? But as the journey progressed, after marriage, I moved to another country. Why I'm saying country here is I don't want to bring personal names and anything, so that so there was this very very famous professional who was following a specific method of working with children with autism, very successful. So I was associated with her. I was going for home visits. That's when I started home visits and got to know what actually happened inside homes. Earlier, the child and mother is coming to us in a clinic. That's very, very different when you are going for home. That is when I didn't have children of my own. I was very young. So I would go to several homes, and then I realized that a lot can be done within homes. So unknowingly, though I was asked to go there only to work with the child and come back, I just started working with the mothers, telling them that, hello, it's nothing, it's not rocket science, you can do it. But that didn't go down very well with the professional who had hired me. And then I realized that why is that so? Then I saw the money. The profit making business industry was very clear to me then in that country, and I just didn't want to continue there. So I and we thankfully we could come back to India, and I joined a clinic here. But then I completely stopped working directly with children and decided that I'm only going to be work with mothers. At the same time, I became a mother myself. And then, all the more reason that I knew for sure how much a mother can do. And my son did have significant difficulties with language. Most of those checklists that we would fill for autism then would have ticked off for him as well. But I didn't see myself panicking. There was no diagnosis because I didn't take him for any assessment because I was a professional myself. I had all the teaching aids, the flashcards, everything I had with me because I was working. So for me it was a very natural. There was no this, oh, getting a diagnosis, grief, shock, guilt, nothing happened. So then I thought that, hey, if I can do that with my child. It took me 4 years. It took me 4 years of extensive one-on-one work with my child, with no support from anybody. Nobody knew. Even now I rarely talk about it because if I talk about it now, people will dismiss it. Oh, chumma, she's, it was a, just autism is not curable. Of course, that's what we learned. So for me, then that was more intriguing. That first few years that I could work made a huge difference. He's 14 years now. So that is when I realized the extent of vulnerability of a mother. At the same time, the amount of power that a mother has. So these two were like contrast and clashing. And I was wondering what is happening. That's when we moved to India, and like I said, I started working with mothers. But all these mothers were going to therapy centers. They would come to me only to find out what do we do at home. So I said, hey, you're going to all these therapy centers and still you don't know what to do with your child at home. So why are they still coming to me? This was very intriguing, but trust me, I never questioned it. I thought, okay, let them come. I never really thought much about it. But soon the mothers started telling me not so good stories about what was happening inside, or they even told me they were not even inside in the first place. They are not even inside a therapy room. This is, I'm specifically talking about Kerala. So that intrigued me, but no mother was willing to talk about it for years. And I also felt that, okay, what can I do? Because I am not the direct affected party. So what will I do unless at least one mother speaks up? So they would change from one therapy center to another, and this would continue until fortunately or unfortunately, Preeta, who's also one of the co-founders of Together We Can, Preeta's son, he broke his arm. He was 6 years then, broke his arm during a therapy session. Uh, that is when, some point you reach enough is enough, right? After a lot of things, you reach a point where that's it. I'm done with this. I cannot take it anymore. And thankfully, Preeta also reached that stage around the same time, and it clicked. It just clicked that, Preeta said yes. I said, Preeta, can we please take this up? We didn't know what exactly to do, but she said yes. For me, that one yes from a mother was enough. That is all that we need to turn the vulnerability into power. And once that power comes, then there is no stopping. That I really realize that there is no stopping. And that is I think that's where we managed to reach this far, because uh, I think we had enough of being vulnerable. That was the thing. Yeah. So that's in brief how we reached till starting TWC.
Sure, sure. So, like you said, that you had pretty long journey before even you became a mother as a professional. Also, you have seen the profession, you have seen professionals very closely,
Yeah.
and then you had a mother, and you also had some brushing up with the challenges or the challenges that a mother might face when their children have developmental delays or
Delays.
difficulties. For some amount of years, you did had the similar situation with you. So how did you then kind of switch or think of going towards activism from being a professional and a mother? What made you kind of have that feeling to say it's not just about only about coping with my own child. It's not just about coping. It's not just about managing my own mental health or managing or uptaking the skill deficits in my child, but it's also about actually doing something much more than what I am already going through or I have already seen also. So a
Yeah.
lot of people will have an exposure or will see things happening around them, but would kind of, in a way, kind of not really accept, but they're aware. They're aware. They know it, but then life goes on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what made you kind of take a decision and think and decide that I need to take up activism?
Yeah.
And what was activism for you, or what did it entail?
Yeah.
Right? What did it entail in the first initial phase?
Um, I think it was more of not a choice, but it was. I also sat waiting for a long time, saying, "Okay, oh, this is all not right. Somebody has to do something, and who is the somebody? Nobody knows." So finally, you reach a point where let us be the somebody and do it. And as I said, it really clicked. It was a right. Unfortunately, there was sometimes it has to hit close to you, isn't it, for us to really do something. And for me, Preeta's I was working closely with Preeta at that point of time, so for me to see her, I called her, what happened, I have not heard you for long, and she cried. I will not forget that tears, and the sentence that she told me in Malayalam, of course, that this is our fate. So, and I put the phone down and I said, seriously, this has to be the fate. And that is when I decided that, okay, now I'm also a professional. My son did not need that kind of a support. So what we thought of doing, let's start meeting the professional and find out why is it that they cannot allow parents inside? What happens if a mother or the father sits inside and sees the therapy and supports the child and learns what they need to do? What happens? Fine, you make the money, you make your profit, you, it is fine. I'm not saying everybody should do free service, no. Okay, so so what we did was, activism started, I think, on thanks to two professionals. The center in which this child's arm was broken, we met that particular professional first. You know both of them very well, right, Manish? So he said he's not accountable. We sat there. He said, "No, I'm not answerable to anybody." Absolutely unapologetic that the child's arm was broken during therapy, and still now nobody knows why. Totally unaccountable. Preeta sat there and cried, and I'm like, no, 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 this cannot happen. So we went and met the head of that association, Occupational Therapy Association, and he was also the same. And that was somebody I really looked up to earlier until then. And he also said the same, that no, our professionals are not trained. So I said, okay, if your professionals are not trained, then isn't it all the more reason that you have the mothers inside to support? The mothers know their children better. So why don't you work together with the mothers? But somehow there was a very strong hierarchy that professional is here and parent is here. So whoever is helping or is considered as helping is supposed to be above. And it's also it never occurred that there is so much to learn from each other. That together concept did not even exist, I realized. And the extent of power that the professionals had, I realized, and which was, I trust me, I felt so ashamed as a professional myself. I felt very ashamed that how can I see this and just let this pass. I think those two reactions from those two people got me angry. And I think activism comes when you are angry, and I was so angry with that whole thing, and we had to do something. That is when I contacted whoever I could with my previous work, Vaishnavi ma'am, and everybody came together. And I didn't know anything about law, nothing. So it was from the start. So yeah, so the activism came out of anger, not because I had any support, but I think the emotion drove me forward.
It was an emotion.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
uh, so like you said, how it all kind of started, and you went on to becoming someone who was an active professional, of course, working for the field, for the same field. But you also started having a dual role of being a kind of a parent advocate or a spokesperson or an activist, while you were also a professional at the same time. And I, like you said, you are also a professional now as well, right? So uh, what were your what would you say were the ups and downs in this whole journey of yours, of your professional being, going towards an activism,
Yeah.
starting your own thing or something relating to it, and in
Yeah.
kind of a movement, something relating to it? What were the ups and downs that you had?
A lot of downs. In fact, initially, because I am this professional and not, in it's like you're neither here nor there. In the professional community, I was here talking about how professionals should not have been. I was, really, really talking strong. But on the other side, in the parent community, I was not technically a parent, because if my children are neurotypically, then I'm not considered an affected party. So then everybody asked me, what is wrong with you? What is your problem? Because it was like, if I don't have a child with disability and if I am not personally affected, it's not my problem.
Okay.
So if it's not my problem, that means you should have a hidden agenda. So what is Seema's motive? So my motive was questioned pretty harsh. again by the unfortunately one person again tried to turn it as a personal battle against me. I was individually targeted, and the biggest a low point for me personally was the huge Facebook trolling that happened on the Kerala Occupational Therapy Association page when I it really affected me. But then that is when everybody around me, I saw the power of the mothers who were around me. They totally took on. And that is when I knew when I became vulnerable, the others who I thought were vulnerable and I had to speak up to, they really stood on and they really spoke up. And that I realized that, okay, this is the moment. And that was actually that the all-time low turned to an all-time high. We used it to highlight the issue. If a professional can be targeted so badly, imagine what will they do to a parent who's already vulnerable. Imagine when I am speaking with experience and with the so-called qualification, and still you are targeted. So imagine what about a young mother who's still confused about the diagnosis, who's still upset. Imagine if they are the ones going to such professionals, what would be her plight? So that was even more shocking to know that, this huge divide is there where there is no mutual respect. A parent should respect a professional and a professional to respect a parent, and they are equal partners. And ultimately it is the journey of the parent, it is not the journey of the professional. You can leave your job and go tomorrow. It is the mother or the family who has to raise the child. So somewhere there was no equal partnership. So the all-time low became an all-time high, and I should be very grateful to whoever trolled me. It was a huge group, and many people didn't even know what was happening. But the minute you are a woman, it becomes more. My inbox was flooded with filth, and many people said that I should take to court. But then I didn't want to make it my personal journey because the larger issue would be lost, because that was the whole agenda. The agenda was to turn it personally against me, but I didn't want to make it because it was not about a specific center. It was not about one therapist or one therapy center or one state. It was about how our rehabilitation system or our disability sector, how we say nothing about us without us. So then where are the parents? Why are the parents not part of at least the therapy program? Why are they not part of an IEP program? Why are they not being trained? Why are you keeping them away? That didn't really make sense. So that was the main agenda. So we had to highlight that. So I think that was possible thanks to a lot of media support. I must say Sudha Nambudiri of Times of India. I have to mention her name everywhere because she turned the whole thing around and she kept writing. She still follows through her journey. In fact, she's now one of our members itself. She turned around our advocates when we filed the public interest litigation. Before we filed it, we had explored all our other options. We had sent a petition to Child Rights Commission. We had sent a petition to collector, to the then minister. The party changed, the new minister. We had explored all options, and there were times when we were just waiting, seeing, okay, nothing is happening. It was very frustrating. So the wait was very, very long. Then, whenever an order would come, we had floods. So again, we would go back 2 steps. So it was not easy at all. There was extensive follow-up, and the mothers started giving video campaigns, not only in Kerala. It really caught on, and I should mention Ruchika's name, and I'm sure that's how you also, you were the first occupational therapist, Manish. I have to be most grateful to you. You spoke up for us when we were being totally bashed up saying,